um so what's going on, everybody? How you guys doing tonight? Uh um we doing good? We doing good tonight? No? Not doing so well? Uh you Oh man. So everybody was super excited about 2020. You know, the Blazers can turn a new leaf after this awful season so far, right? It's even worse. Somehow it's gotten even worse. I thought there was a chance they might lose this game, but we lost by 24 points to the 24 points to the New York Knicks, with literally the worst brand of basketball I've ever seen a Blazers team ever play. Ever. That was ridiculous, man. That was ridiculous. Oh my goodness. So like, is it about time that we change this to like NBA draft uprise or something? Like, I mean, that's what we're gonna be talking about a lot. Like, this is the turning point. 5 games ago, I said the next 9 games are going to be telling for what type of season we're gonna end up having. People were saying, "Oh, we can go 5-4, we can go 6-3." We're 0-5 over that 9-game stretch so far. We could end up 0-9 over this 9-game stretch. Because if we lose like this to the New York Knicks, then I don't see us picking up a road win on this road trip. And then we come back home, and the schedule toughens up. We got like the Mavericks, the Rockets, the Lakers. I think we'll end this month, I don't know, 16, 17 wins and like 30 losses or something like that. Like that's what we're going to end up being. Like, at this rate, I don't think we're going to win 50. I don't think we're going to win 30 games. We might get 30, around 30, but like, my goodness. So I literally just watched an NBA team play absolute rat ball. Play with literally no structure, no ball movement, really not even any sets. Literally just isolate, dribble, clank. These people say that Stotts is a great coach out of a timeout. I was tweeting out our plays out of the damn timeouts this game. Go read my Twitter at TorJonesYT. I don't know. I don't remember the exact plays, but I've been doing this a lot. We have the worst plays out of timeouts in NBA history. And people try and say that Terry Stotts is a good coach at drawing up plays out of timeouts. He's really not, man. I mean, like, I've been paying so much attention to this, and now I've started tweeting it out, so hopefully these other people can see it and can realize what is going on, man. I should have taken a nap, because I put in so much work last night upgrading the branding of this channel that I didn't sleep. Okay? Problem is, apparently the Blazers didn't sleep either. The only guy who got to sleep was Melo, apparently. I mean, Whiteside showed up too. That's the thing. Whiteside and Melo showed up. Dame couldn't hit a shot. But I'll get into why he's part of the reason why he struggled, in my opinion. Stotts is definitely the Jason Garrett of the NBA. Can you guys quit quoting, Coach of the Portland Trailblazers has been fired? Because that's just making me sad that that's not true. I mean, like, it's funny how the media is pretty quiet right now, right? Oh, we're losing these games due to injuries. Are we 24 points worse than the New York Knicks? Who's their best player? They have Julius Randle, Marcus Morris, and who's their third best player? Bobby Portis? We have Dame, CJ, Whiteside, Melo having a flashback performance. We lose by 24 to the New York Knicks. But you know what it is when it's not injuries like this? Is shots didn't fall. You know, Dame's shots just didn't fall. It's either injuries or shots didn't fall. Basketball ain't that simple. Terry Stotts seems to think it's that simple, which is why we're getting blown out by 24 points. Kyle Wilson said, Pinwheel Empire literally tweeted out a GIF of them Hober sliding out of sight. Yep. All these guys that were talking all that trash to me just a week ago. They're pretty quiet right now. And you know what? Hey, man. They can admit they're wrong. They can admit they can come around and start to see basketball for basketball. Okay? And I'll be fine. I'll be like, okay, you know what? I respect you being objective, because these people weren't objective before. We'll see if they start being objective now. You got national media members, guys who played NBA basketball, that are calling out the Portland Trailblazers for the style of basketball they're playing. Kendrick Perkins, Chris Webber. Tonight their best player was Mitchell Robinson. That's true, Eric. Mitchell Robinson was an absolute god, and we didn't adjust to that pick and roll once. Terry Stotts didn't try anything new on that pick and roll, even after Mitchell Robinson was like 10 for 10. Because of that Swiss cheese, cream cheese, pick and roll defense. But, like, do you guys honestly think Stotts tried to change anything in regards to that pick and roll defense? Do we have any Stotts supporters in here? Please try and tell me what Terry Stotts changed to try and slow down Mitchell freaking Robinson on the pick and roll. Because I didn't notice a change. I didn't notice a change. I mean, how many times are you going to let a guy dunk on your head before you quit being stubborn and play defense? Russell first round exit Westbrook said, Dan Meringue said on his pod that ball movement isn't good for this team because it doesn't correspond with wins, but I just don't understand how you can look at games like tonight and say it is coaching. I mean, stats like that avoid context. You have people who take a stats class and think that they know is more about basketball than guys who played in the NBA, because I guarantee you guys who played in the NBA won't sit there and say, ball movement doesn't matter. And we saw it tonight. They got tough shot after tough shot because they kept trying to isolate. That was the problem with Dame. Dame was the only one who was really trying to attack the rim, but he was attacking the rim against a completely set defense, didn't really have a lane, and they have a little bit of length. So Dame was having to go up against help side defenders who were helping well because they were setting up. They saw it coming. Dame was at a standstill. The defense was at a standstill. They could load up their help and load up their weak side rotations easily because they had the time to. They were basically just standing around. So Dame would try and attack the rim and would just get smothered inside. Because our offensive system cannot get him a good look unless he creates it for himself. Compare that to Steph Curry. To the way the Warriors, the Warriors have all that talent. Yeah, but the way in which they run their offense, they get him great looks. Even with poor players, they still, here and there at least, can use him off the ball and get him good looks, inside or outside. We don't really do that with Dame at all. Like, once a game, he'll have a good look, creative form out of a system or, like, another player or something. Like, do these media people really think that's not a problem? Oh, but ball movement doesn't matter, you know, because Dame's, like, Dame can isolate. Brady UO asked Chad if he should be on the hot seat. Sorry, I might be reading chat a little bit late, but, yeah, man, I mean, my phone's dead at the moment. I'm going to bring on Eric. But I'm going to bring on Eric after I finish this point. Let me pull up my tweet. Because I don't have my thoughts fully collected on this ball movement, but I broke it down good with the tweet, so I'm going to kind of repeat it and add on to it. Somebody was trying to make the argument that because we were 10th in offensive rating, our lack of ball movement wasn't a problem. Okay? We literally scored one more point for every 100 possessions more than the average team with a backcourt of CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard, possibly the most offensively talented backcourt in the entire NBA, with Carmelo Anthony, who can go off like he did tonight, with Hassan Whiteside, who's getting us like 16 points per game, with a true shooting percentage at 64-65%, with Anthony Simons, who's playing a little bit better for 21 of those 34 games. Before that, we had Rodney Hood, who was shooting almost 50% from the field and 50% from three. That team should have been 5th. We also played a very easy schedule against some very poor defenses, so that helped us out as well. Well, after tonight, we're not going to be top 10. I had somebody trying to argue, oh, we're top 10 in offensive rating, to try and make it sound better than it was. We were barely 10th. Okay, he wasn't saying, oh, we're 10th. No, we're top 10. We're top 10. Oh, we should be higher than that, man. This roster is not that bad. We have Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum. We had majority of the season had Rodney Hood, who was freaking phenomenal efficiency-wise. Like, our offensive, like, we have a ton of offensive talent. The thing is, our coach is supposedly a head coach because he's an offensive genius. So with this offensive talent that we have, you're going to brag about us being 10th in offensive rating against a very soft schedule as a way to say ball movement doesn't matter. Oh, we're last in assists, but we're 10th in offensive rating. No. You need ball movement against good teams more so than bad teams. What we saw tonight, our lack of ball movement, crushed us against the New York freaking Knicks. I mean, it's such a lame argument, and there's, like, they'll point to, like, league averages, but we don't got James Harden, and we don't got, like, the personnel to surround James Harden. You know what I mean? Like, there's certain teams where isolation works just as well. But, I mean, there's, like, a number of little factors that go into, like, eliminating any correlation. That's why you watch the games with your eyes. That's why you pay attention to what's going out there on the floor. Ball movement. When we move the ball, okay, that's also why you can't use a league-wide average, because what's right for each team is different per team. What I know is when we move the ball, we are a much, much more effective offense, and we play with more energy defensively. Part of that is because everybody's touching the ball. Everybody feels involved in the offense. So naturally, as human beings, they're willing to give more effort on the defensive end. Like, I mean, it's just a ridiculous narrative to say ball movement doesn't matter. It's just like people are just scraping the bottom of the barrel to try to defend Terry Stotts. Now, apparently, ball movement doesn't matter. My goodness. Gabrielle, our best two players don't have to be so ball dominant if they were put in a system that utilized them more off the ball. But they aren't. So, yeah, the talent scapegoat's down the drain. Now it's probably they miss shots. if somebody can get me Stotts' post-game comments, I'd love to hear how he explains this one away. If somebody can finds Chad doing explaining this one, since he always has an explanation, that generic explanation, then let's hear it. I'm interested to see, because this was an absolute embarrassment. This was the worst loss the Blazers have had in years. This is the type of loss and the type of stretch that head coaches get fired for. If we were the Houston Rockets doing this, even if we had James Harden and Russell Westbrook still healthy, but we were missing like Clint Capella and Eric Gordon and Daniel House. But and then we started 14-21. Mike D'Antoni would no longer be the coach. Because Daryl Morey, that organization, they don't stand for mediocrity like that. You know what I mean? Like, they're always searching for a way to upgrade that team. And other teams would fire their coach for this type of stuff. We're not going to do it. We're not going to do it. And it's a damn shame. Like, I'm big. If I saw Jody Allen and I could have a conversation with her for 1 minute, I would beg her to explore the possibility of a different head coach for the Portland Trail Blazers. All right, let's bring on Eric Brandt. Let me get it. Okay, good. Skype. All right, I'm calling Eric. Listening to that ringtone. All right, what's up? What's up?
Let me mute my video here. Okay.
All right, sounds good. We on top.
Hey, man.
Let's go. What's up,
What's
dude?
up?
So Blazers got blown up by 24 to the New York Knicks.
Just terrible effort.
Yeah. Let me just read this comment real quick, because this is an interesting comment for me to comment on, for us to comment on. Andrew Bobrick said, correct me if I say your name wrong, but they say, Chad said there was no energy on defense and guys were doing their own thing. Sounds like a coaching problem if guys are just doing their own thing. Yep. But that's what they always do. That's what I've tried to point out to him. A guy asked if the coach is in the hot seat. Chad responded, no. I don't think Terry is in the I don't think Terry is in the hot seat because we just extended him, and I don't think Jody Allen's going to fire him.
Nope.
So I actually agree with that. I don't think Terry is in the hot seat. I think he should 100% be in the hot seat, though. I think he should, we need something else. We need something else. That's different. Like saying, should we fire Terry Stotts, and is Terry Stotts in the hot seat? That's two different things, because is Terry Stotts in the hot seat implies, do you think Terry Stotts could get fired? And that's just, I don't think it's going to happen.
And Henry M keeps saying, since Stotts is the main problem, trades don't matter. But we made 2 trades and brought in guys that were good enough last year to kind of offset some of Stotts' coaching, and look where that got us. And then people say that's because of Stotts when it wasn't, But both Cantor and Hood are like vets who know how to play the game without being coached. You know what I mean? They both. I mean, Cantor, you could question his defense, I guess, but his defense was better than advertised. So it kind of makes you question. How he had 5 blocks the other night, career high, by the way.
Yeah.
But those are the kind of players we need on this team to combat the coaching. Because I agree with Chad, the team is just going out there and playing, and I agree with what you said at the beginning, that it just looks like rat ball. There's no structure. There's no they're just standing around watching each other play.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
That's exactly what happens if I go play at 24 Hour Fitness.
Well, what I compared it to was, it looks like rat ball at an open gym, But not
Yep.
even at the start of the open gym. 2 hours into the open gym when nobody cares anymore, everybody's tired and everybody's just kind of screwing around.
Right. And
Like,
you get the
it's not even as good as like rat ball at the start of an open gym. That's how bad it is, man. It's horrible.
and I get how defensive rotations in that situation at like the gym wouldn't be good. Or you always have like one guy on your team, you're like, oh crap, I have to play with him. He never knows where to be off the ball and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, you're going
But
to get that at the gym. This is the NBA, yeah.
This is the NBA where you have like what 34, 35 games, whatever it is so far. You have all this practice time. You have training camp. You have guys with years of experience in this league, and they don't know where to be on defense or how to play defense or how to play together as a team on defense.
We're regressing.
Or even what team defense means or how to like. It's just
we are.
I don't even know what to say, man. It's like ridiculous.
I understand if it's an issue. You know, people are saying, "Oh, chemistry." Okay, well, if it's chemistry, then it should be something that's improving because the more you play together, the more chemistry you gain. It's regressing, so no, it's not chemistry. It's not. It's not.
Well, I mean, the Knicks have just as many new players as we do this year. Like they just signed a bunch of people in the offseason. So like, I mean, I hate that chemistry excuse because there were so many teams other than like maybe Denver in the West. I can't really think of a team that didn't have some sort of major change either between injuries and off-season moves. So like, I don't know. I just don't see the excuse when you still have Dame and CJ healthy. I can understand the 2 games Dame missed, and you know some of the games where his back was bothering him, but like we still have those guys. Dame and CJ should have been the best 2 players on the court tonight. Like it's not a talent. It's not a talent thing.
Yeah, no, it's not. I mean, Melo killed it. Whiteside, Dame, and CJ are better than anybody on New York's roster.
And this is the third time I'm going to bring this up. The first time I brought it up before the season started, you kind of laughed at this notion. The second time I brought it up a few weeks ago, you were starting to come around. But I feel like ever since we won Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals, this team does not have any sort of focus, any sort of like drive to be better. They made it to the Western Conference Finals, and now it's like, okay, we made it. We don't have to try as hard.
Yeah.
And I'm coming out and saying this right now. It's the whole team. I mean, the offseason, they made it to Western Conference Finals, so Dame got paid, CJ got paid, Stotts got paid, Olshey got paid, and they haven't done a dang thing to prove that they
I don't remember completely shutting that down because I kind of had that vibe a little bit, but like I didn't want to believe that, and it was like, you know what, that's probably just me like overthinking just the Western Conference Finals. But given what I've seen this year, they are so complacent. That's one of the reasons we need a new coach. They are so complacent, and it's so weird to see.
It's not that they're like, I'm not saying they're not trying hard or like don't want to be like that. Because like you hear Dame talk, and he says this after almost every game about them lacking focus and energy and stuff. But it's like, why not? Like you can do something about it. You can fix that. Like just put more effort in. Like it's really simple. And like it was obvious in the Golden State series that they were happy to be there, not thinking they could win that series, right? And it's like now they think they made it to the Western Conference Finals. They were one of the best 4 teams in the NBA last year. They can go into New York and win against a crappy New York team without even trying they just have to show up and win these games. And in the NBA, you can't do that, especially when you have injuries on top of that, and you have, you know, bad coaching, and like you just can't do that in the NBA. And that's why we're 14-21 right now. You can't just show up and win these games, even when you're the more talented teams. You have to play together. You have to play with passion. Last year, they all said it, that losing in the first round of the Pelicans drove them that entire season. What's driving them this season? There's nothing. They're just like, oh, well, we're injured, Nurk's out, blah, blah, blah. It's the same reason like all these media people are saying. I feel like they're portraying that through their play. Like, oh, well, we're injured. What do you expect us to do? You know, like,
yeah.
And it's just getting really sad.
I mean, Yeah, it's a problem, and it's a problem that needs to change. Like, but I don't know exactly where it starts. I don't know like who's most to blame for that. I don't know if
Right.
it's like the collection of guys. I don't know if it's Dame. Uh, like Dame got voted best leader in the league, and I've never wondered before if like his leadership may be a little bit overrated, but like, and I'm not saying it is. There's somebody to blame for that, for what you talked about. There's somebody to
Well,
blame for that complacency, for that mindset problem. It might be the coach. It might be the players in the roster not having confidence in each other. It might be the leadership at the top. I don't know what it is, but like if I'm a leader of this team right now, if I'm Dame, I'm absolutely pissed off with the way we're playing. I'm calling a players only meeting. You know what I mean? Like I'm not sitting back and just gonna like take punch after punch because we're a little bit banged up. I mean, we're more than a little bit banged up, but as a competitor, like your mindset should not be on injuries at all. When you go like you move past it. You move past it. You support your teammates, but you move past it because you gotta handle your own business because you're still playing. I don't know, man. I agree with you on that. Chat, what do you think about what Eric
so
said? Do you guys agree with that? And who do you guys think would be to blame for that? Because I have no idea. Like, there's something going on here that's deeper.
Russell, first round exit Westbrook, brings up a good point. Dame did come out of the gates hot this season, but Dame's a phenomenal player. Like,
Yeah.
whatever attitude he has, he's capable of scoring 60 points in a game or like doing whatever if he gets hot and gets his confidence going. And I don't know if the back spasms are still bothering him or what, but like, yeah, it's like,
He had a good stretch before this, though.
yeah, and then, well, in the first half, he was 1 for 10, but he had like 8 rebounds and 6 assists. So it's not like when he's struggling, he's not contributing elsewhere either. So it's just really frustrating because it's not just about making shots. So like, it's not that simple. It's just, I don't know. The whole team is just like, oh, well, here we go again. Like, we're getting our butts kicked by the Knicks. Okay.
Yeah.
They made it. They made another three. Shucks.
Yeah.
Like I don't see anyone getting like Dame has shown a little bit of like getting mad
Yeah.
during this season, but more so than in the past at least. But yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. This team just didn't like getting to the Western Conference Finals. I think that would make you hungrier. Like,
Yeah.
we got close. The roster isn't worse than last year. I don't think this, like, maybe with the injuries now, but I don't think this roster was worse than last year's going into the season. I thought Olshey had a good offseason. This is coming from somebody who's hated. I wouldn't say hate because I think it was justified, but this is coming from somebody who hasn't been afraid to criticize Olshey. I thought Olshey had a good summer. I still think Olshey had a good summer. He made a couple mistakes with Hazonia, Tolliver, Len Lehman go. But other than that,
that shouldn't have been the difference between contending for the playoffs and being like a home court advantage and 14 and 21.
So it's like if I got to the, if I'm an athlete, I got to the Western Conference Finals, my team got to the Western Conference Finals. I don't think the roster is worse. And we were competitive in that Western Conference Finals series, even though we got swept. I'm hungrier than ever. But success can breed complacency. And you can't let success breed complacency. And I think success has it's bred complacency. Yep. I think they need a coach that holds them more accountable, that motivates them more, because I don't think Terry Stotts is motivating these guys at all. Like, he's not. And then we also need energy guys, hustle guys that will go and get it. I think that would be fine. I don't think it's necessarily due to like the leadership at the top of the roster. I think if you had like a Montrezl Harrell out there, Ed Davis out there, more guys like that, we would. But like we got Carmelo Anthony, Hassan Whiteside, guys like that. combined with possibly some complacency from the guys who returned, and that compounds itself. You combine it with the coach who doesn't hold players accountable enough and who isn't that great of a coach, and then you compound that with, some adversity that they're folding to this year instead of when they didn't last year. I don't know, man. It's a bunch of different things, but yeah, there's definitely something wrong with the mental makeup of this team, because with this roster, there's no way you go out here and lose to the New York Knicks by 24 points unless there's something wrong with your mentality going into that game. Maybe everybody got drunk and maybe everybody was hungover, but these problems have been percolating. You know what I mean? If this was just like a one-off, then okay, they had New Year's Eve, New Year's night in New York City. And they obviously went out, enjoyed themselves, but this isn't a one-off. We've lost 5 in a row.
And I lost who said it, but someone said the team kind of dropped their heads once Hood got hurt. But these problems have been the entire season. It's not.
Yeah. They existed before Rodney Hood, and that's why I can't. That's what I hate is when people say, "Oh, we were missing 3 of 5 starters." Okay, the problems were there when we were only missing 2 of 5 starters.
Yeah,
and we had a starting center replacement for Nurkic, so it was really only missing one starter, basically, because we have a starting center who's been playing well.
Let me ask you a question. When you talk about Brooklyn this year, do you be like, oh, well, they're missing Durant as a starter? Do you consider that them missing a starter, or is that just Durant's out for this year? They signed him knowing he'd be out for this year. That's not missing a starter. That's missing a good player, obviously, one of the best players in the league. But that's not this team this year. That doesn't affect this team at all. That's not a starter for this team. They knew that.
Exactly.
And that's why I hate when they say 3 of 5 starters, because yes, we are 2-1 with Collins, so that's the only one starter you can say is the difference between this whole season, basically. If that's the way you want to go, if that's what you really think, then fine. But I don't understand how you could just go from that to 3 out of 5 starters.
Eddie Simba says 4 in a row. Tori, no, it's 5 in a row. We were 14-16. We're 14-21. DeAndre Page says, blame the freaking coach is a cop-out. We already knew the 2 guards were below average defenders. That speaks to an individual's heart, not talent. If you think that us losing to the New York Knicks by 24 is due to our backcourt defense, which has been the same for the past 5 years, then I don't know what to tell you, man. Because that is one variable that's been the same. Okay, CJ's on-ball defense has improved. Problem is, his off-ball defense, it sucks, but it has sucked. And we were still successful in spite of it. But now it's a more glaring problem because we don't have the same margin room for error. But ask yourself this. CJ McCollum's off-ball defense sucks. Why hasn't he improved that? Is it just he doesn't care enough to improve? I don't think that's the case. I don't think he has the proper instruction and the proper coaching to hold him accountable in terms of where he's positioned defensively, how he rotates defensively, and his off-ball defense. So that goes back to coach with the problems that you're trying to blame. You're trying to pin the issues on our backcourt defense, but it's been the same, and our backcourt defense could be helped by proper instruction and coaching that holds guys more accountable for how they defend off the ball. Because I try and pay attention to Stotts' reactions to things. I don't think he holds CJ accountable on his off-ball defense. I truly don't. And DeAndre Page, you blame the backcourt defense for everything. It's so much more than that, man. It's so much more than that. Yes, that doesn't help our team, but it's not come on.
Well, the thing is, with the rules in the NBA today, there's maybe 5 to 10 players that I would feel comfortable guarding someone one-on-one and be able to stay in front of them consistently, right? Mm-hmm. On the perimeter. So it's all about different schemes, pick and roll scheme, off-ball scheme, team defensive schemes, where you're lining up, when the ball is in certain positions on the court where you're supposed to be. That's all coaching. It's 100% coaching. And if the players aren't in the right spots, then why aren't they in the right spots? And that's puzzling. If every game players are in the wrong spots, then what is being done to make them learn how to be in the right spots? I don't know.
Yep.
drives me crazy. It's not like we're all staying on our guys and we're getting beat one-on-one penetration down the middle and no one's helping or something. It's like, if that was the case, then I'd absolutely agree with you that our two backcourt defenders are the problem. But like in the NBA right now, it's not about guard defenders, and it's not like some of the times when we played the Warriors where Klay Thompson would post up CJ and turn and shoot over him or something, and he's like trying really hard on defense. It's just not good enough. That hasn't been the case at all. It's just been like him falling asleep or not giving the effort on that side of the ball. And yeah, to me, that's coaching. I don't know what you think about that.
I mean, no, I agree with you. That's a great, that's a great breakdown. I mean, like, that's the thing is I like having people in here to challenge us like that with that type of narrative, because we can explain it further than that.
And the other thing is too, like, other than Nurkic, I don't believe this team has been that good anyway, in terms of defense and these things that I'm talking about. And so it's not like we were a top 10 team with Aminu and Harkless, and that's going to be different. Yeah. Like the season before we traded for Nurk, when we had Aminu and Harkless and Plumlee as our center, we were like one of the historically bad defenses the first couple of years, like all time in the NBA for the first couple of months of the season. And sadly, this kind of start isn't like abnormal either. Last year, we didn't really have a bad stretch other than after we won a few games early in the season, we fell to like 13-11, I think was as worst as it got. And then we played pretty well from there. But all the other seasons under Stotts, well, at least since we had the 2 seasons where I'm talking about post Aldridge. So every season we've started off almost some point below 500, about 10 games, and then had a miracle run towards the end of the season. So yeah, I don't think it's as easy as saying we're missing certain players from last year's team. Like, this team is still talented enough with the injuries and with missing players from last team to not lose all these games to horrible teams that don't even really care that much about this season.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, it's the same thing we've been saying all season. Now it's more and more obvious, in my opinion. I think if people still think Stotts is doing a fine job, then they're never, ever, ever going to criticize Stotts about anything meaningful ever. Like that. I'm convinced of that at this point. Let me raise my seat a little bit.
And the other thing about Aminu, too, is he had transformed from – he was a pretty good perimeter defender when he first signed with Portland. And then as he played more and more, or almost exclusively at power forward, especially the last couple of years, he only played power forward. So as that kind of developed, he became a little bit better post defender, but his perimeter defense was actually pretty poor last year. I remember several games where players just blew right by him when he got switched on there. So it's not like he was like some elite shutdown defender either. So I don't think that's the answer. Obviously, he's a better defender than Melo, but Melo's obviously a better offensive player than him. Yeah. And Melo actually had a really, really good game tonight. But the problem is, what was our offense? It was just like, here, Melo, try to make something happen. That's all we did. And it was working sometimes, but then
when we could rely on that, we completely fell apart. We fell apart right when Melo got taken out of the game. We completely rely. If you're relying on if you have Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, Hassan Whiteside, and in order to stay in the game against the New York freaking Knicks, you have to rely on a 35-year-old having a insanely efficient, insanely good performance in order to just tread water and kind of keep in touch with the New York Knicks. That's sad, man. That's sad. It's sad.
So, we had 48 points at half off 36% shooting, something like that. come out, and I don't know if this was the first three possessions, but so CJ 3 straight possessions early in the third quarter without a pass, and he made two out of the three, but like it's just, but then it like continues, and then next time Melo gets the ball, he doesn't pass, and then the next time Dame gets the ball, he doesn't pass, and then yeah, just it's frustrating. Yeah. And then only 17 assists for the game, and I'm so sick. I'm so sick of the people who bring up like the correlation between ball movement and assists and not winning
with no context included at all. Yeah, I hate that.
Because, so someone brought up the Damarang thing earlier, and there's been some other sites that I've seen this where the Blazers, the Rockets like have pretty much like dominate everyone else in the league in terms of ISO situations, because they have, Dame or Westbrook and Harden, obviously, who are almost exclusive ISO players. But everyone's saying like, oh, well, Dame is the most efficient ISO player in the league, and the team overall, like points per possession on ISOs, is like first in the NBA or whatever it is. And so, but that doesn't mean it's a good offense. Like, if you're the best at something that's not that great, like, so I was kind of thinking of this analogy. If Dame started shooting half-court shots and he made 2 out of every 10 of them, he'd be 20%. He'd lead the league in like half-court shots, right? Made. Yeah. That doesn't mean he's the best in the NBA at shooting half-court shots, but that doesn't mean it's a good shot to take from half-court, right?
Yeah.
So like I equate it to that, where like, yes, they're good in ISO, but like all these things we talked about, when you play basketball and you just stand around watching a guy dribble, like you said, and you never touch the ball, and then finally, oh, I get past the ball. Whoa, wow. Like, it takes you a second, like, you're like, wow, I actually got the ball, instead of like, all it takes is simple, oh, pass to this guy, and then pass it back to the person, and then let him go one-on-one, and then it just feels like more of a flow, like everyone gets involved, and you feel like you passed to that person and he scored. Oh, that was good, even if it wasn't an assist situation, like you're still involved in the play. Instead, it's just like, I mean, I'm sorry, but anyone who says that, uses that stupid excuse like, oh, why don't you go try coaching the team then? Like, that drives me crazy, because what is Stotts doing? Like, anybody, I'm not saying I'd be a good coach, but any single person in this chat could tell Dame to go make something happen. And he can make something happen. That's not coaching. That's just, oh, I have good players, I'm going to let them be good. So, okay, like, yeah, that might be your best strategy as a coach, which is really sad that you can't get them a better shot than, okay, you go be good at ISO because you're one of the better ISO players in the NBA.
Yeah.
Like, why not do something so he doesn't have to be the best ISO player in the NBA? Make him the best, like, off-ball player in the NBA or something.
Yeah, exactly. And part of it is, shout out First P Last JL for the $2 donation, who's the most underrated player in the NBA. Ask me again in a little bit when we are like ready to switch topics, and I'll answer that. Appreciate the $2 dono, bro. But yeah, I mean, like, but part of it is like, okay, sometimes isolation's working. If Dame's having a good night, if he has good matchups, you know what I mean? Like, there is definitely situations where it's definitely okay, sometimes even good, to run a lot of isolation. Part of it for me is being able to switch gears when it's not working, which they don't do. That's the thing. Terry Stotts is one of the least versatile coaches in the league. He only runs one defensive scheme. His offense is basically just isolation. It doesn't switch up what it's trying to do. It's a ton of pick and roll and isolation, probably more so than any other team in the NBA, and that's why we're last in assists per game, last in assist percentage, last in passes per possession, last in a number of ball movement measures. The thing is, like, okay, isolation isn't working. Maybe we're playing the Los Angeles Clippers and Kawhi Leonard is guarding Damian Lillard. What do we do when isolation isn't working? We have to move the ball. We have to run a team offense. We're still going to need Dame to score, but it's a lot harder to do it when Kawhi Leonard is at a standstill right in front of him compared to maybe moving the ball so they have to scramble and maybe assignments get jumbled and then maybe you isolate, or moving the ball and it creates, lanes in the defense because the defense is moving. So when Dame catches the ball, he might have an open three. He might have a driving lane. Move Dame off the ball, run him off screens the way that the Warriors run Steph Curry off of screens, run sets to try and get Dame easy looks where he doesn't have to try and create it from a standstill in isolation. That's what you do if isolation isn't working. But they don't do that. If isolation isn't working, we get absolutely screwed. And then it's, they just missed shots. Well, isolation isn't going to work 100% of the time. Probably not even going to work 50% of the time. You got to be able to switch gears. That's one of my biggest complaints with Terry Stotts. He does not adapt. He does not adjust. He does not switch gears.
Well, here's the deal. The Blazers, like the opponents of the Blazers, know we're an ISO-heavy team, right? So you can fool teams like that, right? Like, act like you're going to do an ISO thing and then run like a back screen off the ball and have a guy go towards the hoop and he's wide open. Or do what we did that one play against the Lakers where Dame throws to Bazemore and he runs off an elbow pick and then runs all the way around the baseline and curls back up to the top of the key. If they start hedging that pick off ball, then the guy down low, which was Whiteside in that case, can just flash to the basket and there's no one within 10 feet of him for a lay-in or a dunk. Yeah. There's things you can do off of isolation to run plays. You don't have to just have the other four guys stand there and watch the guy dribble around and try to score. Like, you can do stuff on the court. Like, so if that's your strategy to have isolation basketball, like, try other things off of that. And try to make it so like Dame and CJ can become playmakers. And I've said this for years now that CJ could be one of the best playmakers in the league if he looked to pass more instead of trying to shoot his shot. Because when he dribbles, especially around the elbow area, the free throw line extended, like he always gets the defense collapsed on him when he has his fancy dribbles and he gets by someone. Like, there's always going to be someone open on those plays. And that's what I'm talking about with ball movement. It's using the isolation to create ball movement. And I know if he passes, it doesn't become ISO anymore. But that's my whole point, is that we have these great ISO players, but that doesn't mean they only have to dribble and try to create from themselves. Like, the great ISO players can also create from others. And that's one thing that Jordan learned early, or not early, but after 6 or 7 years in the league, when he wasn't winning in the playoffs, that he could score 60 points in a game, but it doesn't make your team win necessarily until he started realizing, like, oh, you know what? In this situation, I need to trust Steve Kerr to hit this shot or whatever. It just there's things you can do. You can't just say, oh, Dame couldn't hit his ISO shots this game, but he's a really good ISO player. It just, like, try something else then.
Yep. Russell first round exit Westbrook said, Dan Marang's logic was, you'd rather have Dame with the ball in hand than your worst players. And then he adds on, but if you don't share the ball, then the other team can just shut down Dame and our whole team shuts down. That's 100%. Sometimes you have to have the ball in a worse player's hand to give your best player a better opportunity to make something happen when the ball finally ends up back in his hand. Or you use the fact that the defense would much rather take the ball out of Dame's hands and you create good looks for worse players, usually around the rim as cutters, you know what I mean? You use the defensive attention that teams give Dame, and you can actually utilize that against them if you move the ball, if you move players in a specific way, if you have sets designed to specifically take advantage of teams overloading on Dame. NBA players can make layups, okay? Like, they can make open layups. But you know what I mean? But no, we have Kent Bazemore sit in the corner constantly. I don't see him used as a cutter. He'd be good if used as a cutter, as a mover off the ball, as a screener. Same with Nasir Little. Same with a number of guys. But we just sit these guys in corners, and then it's, oh, we don't have enough shooting, or, oh, they didn't make their shots, they're not good enough. People that make these types of arguments oversimplify the game and oversimplify what a coach can do with a roster. And it's, me and you played organized basketball. I'm not saying you had to have played organized basketball to understand this stuff. You don't have to have played organized basketball to know this. But the type of arguments that those people make to me, it's just like it seems like they never played organized basketball, because this is something that's like common knowledge for somebody that played organized basketball, and then I have these arguments with people that didn't, and it's just like, wow, you really don't think that moving the ball is you think that moving the ball is bad? Like, you don't think moving the ball is a good thing? It's just silly, man, and it's just like this back and forth that's been going on all season long, and it seems like it might be over now because they're being awfully quiet.
Yeah,
I mean,
Dame didn't even get it to the free throw line once tonight, which is crazy too.
Yeah, there was definitely some opportunities he could have, but like, he wasn't getting good. He was trying what I thought he was trying to do. He was trying to get to the rim, because if he doesn't get to the rim, or we're not going to get anything around the rim unless he either gets to the rim or he passes it to like Hassan Whiteside in the pick and roll. That's the only way we're going to get shots around the rim. Or maybe a fast break bucket, or maybe here and there somebody drives and gets to the rim. But for the most part, Dame has the responsibility of trying to get the entire offense shots around the rim. Problem is, most of the time, he has to do that from a complete standstill against a completely set defense. So he was trying to attack the rim, I thought. He was trying to get inside, but none of his looks inside were clean. He was 1 for 10 the first half, 0 for 2 from 3, so he was 1 for 8 from 2-point range, and a lot of it was him missing layups that were just completely smothered. And a lot of times he didn't really have like a good playmaking opportunity out of it, because the defense was rotating right, the defense was covering other guys right and helping correctly and taking away passing lanes because they were set. So it was easy for them to recognize where they needed to rotate, what they needed to take away, how they needed to help, because they were set. If they were moving around, if they were scrambling, they wouldn't have been able to load up on Dame as effectively when Dame drove to the rim. That's what I mean by moving the ball. Moving players can get Dame in a better position to attack the rim, score for himself, or attack the rim and collapse the defense in a way where he would actually have better playmaking opportunities. But the problem is, the way our system is run, the way our offense is run, he's trying to create from a standstill against a completely set defense, and he's tasked with, creating pretty much everything for us inside, which is ridiculous to ask for a 6'2" point guard, but that's what Stotts asks of him. So that's one of my biggest complaints as well. And people look at it like, oh, Dame's just struggling. Dame's 1 for 10. I don't think he's being put in a position to succeed, to be quite honest with you. He's given the freedom that he needs. He's been given that from day one when he got into the league. But I think his stats might not necessarily look all that much better, but I think he could play a better brand of basketball that's more impactful to winning if he was put in more of a position to succeed, where he didn't have to try and force against a defense smothering him at the rim, if that makes sense.
Yep. And then there's a couple of good points. So one was by I forgot who said it, but someone was talking about how Dame has to work so hard on the offensive end in those ISOs, and that is part of the reason why Dame and CJ are so bad on defense sometimes, is because they have to put so much effort just to create a bad shot on offense. And yes, they're good at creating bad shots and making shots, but like that takes a lot of your energy to go ISO in the NBA and create a good shot. And then it was Russell first round Westbrook who said, still waiting on this team to start playing faster, which the Rockets, so they're a heavy ISO team, but their pace is usually in the top 3 in the NBA in terms of like moving the ball, pushing the ball up the court, how many possessions they get in a game, all that kind of stuff. We don't push the ball at all, and we play ISO. So we're dependent solely on scoring out of those ISO situations, whereas the Rockets get so many more possessions than we do that they don't necessarily have to score in the half court trying to break down guys as much. So yes, Harden does have to do that several times, but they also get out and run to the point where he can create offense off the fast break situations, which is so much easier. And you get, well, a lot of times you get open layups or dunks through that. You get an open 3 because the defense isn't set. It's kind of a chaos situation. And we're really good in those situations when we actually do it, like off an offense or rebound when the defense is like slow to get back to their guy or something like that. We almost always get an open 3 out of that with just a pass or two. But like, there's just no, and that goes back to the whole urgency thing. We do not, like we started to get down double digits to the Knicks. We didn't try to push the pace up. We didn't try to fast break. We didn't try to score quicker. We just kept doing the same thing over and over again. And, we miss a couple ISO shots. The Knicks come down, hit 4 threes in a row, and all of a sudden it goes from like a 6-point game to an 18-point game in 2 minutes, and it's totally over. Ball game.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like where is, like, I don't know. I just don't get why we don't try different things ever. Like, we're just.
Yeah, especially when you look at it, like, since we had that 19-point lead, basically in the past, 6.5 quarters, we've been outscored by the Phoenix Suns at home combined with the New York Knicks on the road by about 50 points in the last 6 quarters or so. And I don't think we've made one adjustment that whole entire time or tried to play a different brand of basketball during those 6 quarters. Well, we're being outscored by 50 points. Like, it's so ridiculous to me, and it's so obvious to me. It just, I don't understand why some people struggle to see it, man. I don't understand it. I'm glad that a lot of Blazer fans are starting to realize this type of stuff, but like I'm so like, it's funny. I was thinking about this. I'm so certain about this type of stuff that I'm talking about. Like I just, like, it's not even a question to me. Like it's just so obvious to me. Like I don't know. But I did want to reference, since we got Ink Double D in here, the 76ers fan, asking about the CJ McCollum for Al Horford rumor. So somebody, like, I think it was like a 76ers reporter or somebody affiliated with them who has sources, sourced Woj, saying that Woj said that the Philadelphia 76ers had interest in CJ McCollum, and Al Horford and Zaire Smith could be a good package back for CJ McCollum or something. And then he went back and said, actually, I double checked and Woj didn't say anything, but I checked with my sources and they did indeed say that Philadelphia would be interested in CJ McCollum. It's like, oh, that's convenient. That's such a convenient, like, thing to have happen, that your sources, that you just asked people in the organization. They said, yeah, you're right, just to like cover your tracks for incorrectly sourcing a rumor. Like, I don't believe that guy.
So yeah, I know that's been basically, I think I see took down the tweet or something, or is backtracked on it or something. But so maybe Chad can answer this. So in the podcast earlier today, people were saying that Woj actually said it on like a broadcast or something on ESPN. Like, is that true? Like, did he say that there were those teams interested in CJ and just that fake rumor from Philadelphia is false? Or did CJ not even come up out of Woj and that whole thing is made up?
Yeah.
I'm a little confused because I didn't see the TV part, and I've seen nothing on Twitter other than everyone discussing the Philadelphia situation.
Yeah. While they answer that, if the rumors were true, Portland's not going to trade CJ for Al Horford, Zaire Smith, even a pick. Like, that's not something they're going to do. It literally makes no sense for them. That's nowhere near enough. They can't trade CJ until January 30th anyway. Al Horford's getting too old. The season's looking lost. I mean, like, Zaire Smith is nowhere near enough in terms of, like, young rebuilding assets, but I doubt Portland's even going to go that route where they're trying to rebuild. And I guess you could say they get both. You know, Al Horford could help them win. Al Horford doesn't make sense with Nurkic coming back and when Zach Collins comes back, which is going to be like within a month and a half probably of when they can actually trade CJ McCollum for Al Horford. So it literally doesn't make sense. And they still have Whiteside. They might get a center back for Whiteside. Like, you know, it just makes no sense. Here's your counter offer, though. Inc. Double D, let me know if you'd take this. CJ McCollum for, I mean, I don't know if the salary matches, so maybe throw in like Kent Bazemore to make it match, whatever. But basically, CJ McCollum for Tobias Harris and Josh Richardson. I think that's what it would take. Something like that for Portland to trade CJ McCollum. So, Inc. Double D, would you take that trade as a Sixers fan? That's my question for you.
Trevin's saying that Woj never said anything. It was just that guy saying he said it, and everyone ran with it. So,
see, Inc. Double D says no shot for Tobias Harris and Josh Richardson for CJ McCollum. Honestly, you'd probably be getting the best. I think CJ is just as good as Tobias Harris and Josh Richardson, maybe a little bit better. I also think he's a better fit for that team. They don't really have a perimeter scorer who can go get you a bucket when the game is on the line. You look at CJ McCollum, who basically carried Portland to a Game 7 win in the Western Conference semifinals in Denver because he, you know, that offense was super bogged down. It was the same typical type of offense, but CJ McCollum put the team on his back, and the defense took care of business too. That was part of it, you know, a very low-scoring game, but CJ McCollum won them that game by being that guy created from the perimeter. That's the one thing I think Philadelphia is missing. They don't have that guy who can consistently create at all three levels on the perimeter where you can give him the ball with the game on the line, and he can go get you a bucket like he's shown that he can do for Portland. I don't...
So,
I think that's a little bit too much for Philadelphia too. I don't really necessarily disagree with him, but I think that's a lot closer to even value than Al Horford, Zaire Smith, and a pick for CJ. I think I think the trade I proposed is closer in value, and he said no shot. So,
just double D. What's up with Jonah Bolden? Is he just like done in Philly? As I think that's a guy that Portland could use.
Yeah, for sure.
Tori knows I like it. But so I was thinking about this after your podcast. If Woj really had said that, it would have been fairly interesting in terms of, like, did Olshey leak that to try and start seeing how Dame would react to that possible situation? Yeah. Or are they just like contacting other teams for trades, and they're just like a team like, because those were all pretty good teams that wouldn't want like Bazemore in a deal. So are they just saying like, oh, what would you want for CJ instead? And then that's like, oh, these teams are interested in CJ, or you know, Stotts is just trying, or not Stotts, Olshey is just trying to give his guys some more confidence in a bad season or something, that like, oh, all these teams still are interested in him. He's not that bad of a player. All these teams still like him. You know, his contract's good. Like, because he's got to try to justify that extension he gave CJ. So like, if all these good teams are still wanting CJ, then that would look good for him. But I mean, I guess none of that matters if it wasn't even true.
Yeah, 100%.
But you alluded to possible locker room situation. Like that might, if that was true, that might be a sign that there is something in the locker room. If Olshey would even be entertaining the idea of trading either CJ or Dame, which I know Dame's not eligible to be traded, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. I just wanted to respond to this real quick though. He said the Sixers will never let go of Simmons or Embiid ever. That's basically the same way with Lillard and McCollum at this point for Portland. So, I mean, if you're trying to get McCollum, Like Ben Simmons would probably like that would be like a straight up trade. I think McCollum would be a better fit with Embiid than Ben Simmons. It could get Embiid a little bit more space, and if Embiid wasn't effective, CJ McCollum's a better scorer than Ben Simmons. Obviously not the same level of defender or playmaker, but when you have Joel Embiid protecting the rim, when you have Josh Richardson, when you have Al Horford, losing Ben Simmons' defense wouldn't be that much of a hit at all compared to what you're getting offensively. So I think McCollum's a better fit than Simmons. So if they're really trying to win now, win this year, next year, a year after, it might make sense for Philadelphia to do that trade. Obviously, long term, Ben Simmons is the much better option, which is why I don't think they would. But I think Simmons' defense is a little bit redundant in a way. I still think that'd be like a borderline top 5 defense without him.
Well, this goes back to someone's point earlier. Like, say we got Simmons for CJ. Simmons needs to play in an up-tempo offense. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they just back off him, and he's not as effective. He's still a good player, but like he hasn't really proven that he can score in the half court like he can in transition. And that's what happens in the playoffs too, when it becomes a half court game and he's not as effective. So trading him and putting him on this team will just make him a worse player than he is in Philly.
Oh yeah, and I think if you're gonna go out there and get a second star, he has to be a guy that can not only create his own shot, but also play off Dame. Like a Karl Anthony Towns could do a really good job playing off Dame with his 3-point shooting. His pick and pop would be deadly as hell. But then like Karl Anthony Towns can go get you a bucket. So like a Karl Anthony Towns would be a perfect fit at a power forward or center position for Damian Lillard. Thing is with Ben Simmons, he kind of needs the ball in his hands to be effective. That's why I don't think he's the best fit possible for Joel Embiid, considering a player of his caliber. But that's the same issue that would happen in Portland. Like, he needs the ball in his hands. It takes the ball out of Dame's hands. Yeah, you'd have somebody that can create for Dame, but given the Stotts offense and given how we play in the half court so consistently, we don't run. I think it wouldn't be a great fit for us to take Ben Simmons. If we trade CJ for Ben Simmons, I try and flip Ben Simmons elsewhere for pieces that fit better, or for like picks, cap space, that type of thing.
Karl Anthony Towns,
yeah. Yeah. So it's just interesting. It's interesting to think about, but I don't think a trade will happen between both teams. I highly, highly doubt it.
I agree with Ink Double D that Simmons and Embiid won't get moved. They'll try to trade guys around those two. And the same thing we say about Dame is.
Oh, we're back. I think we're back. Yeah, we're back. Okay. Well, we're back. What's up? Internet just spazzed out for a second. What were you saying? You were in the middle of a point, and I forget what we were talking about.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
What was Eric talking about? Our viewership went from 85 like to 25. Well, back up to 36.
I was just saying that, like 76ers with Embiid and Simmons, I don't think Dame and CJ are going to be traded. I think that was just bogus stuff.
Yeah.
But we have 5 weeks till the trade deadline, and if we don't make a move soon, I know the season's pretty much slipped away now, but any chance of making a miracle run is fastly deteriorating. So any kind of move, especially if you're giving up a first-round pick, I think has to be something in regards to making our lineup better next year. It can still help us this year. It doesn't mean that I'm giving up on this year. But like a Robert Covington is under contract for 2 more years after this one. So he helps both this year and having a solid wing the next 2 years. People like that. Like if you want to make a big play and go after Karl Anthony Towns, that helps for 4 more years after this one because he just is in the first year of a 5-year contract.
Yeah.
So like you got to make moves like that. Like trading for Gallinari this year doesn't make sense anymore because like he's a free agent. Yeah, you could possibly re-sign him, but like why give up a first-round pick for someone who might not even be here next year? That's same with Iguodala. Like those kind of players. And now we argued about this before the season started. If Iggy would even report here, now I'm starting to think that there's no chance he would report here.
No.
On a 14-21 team. He would be mad that he got traded to not one of the LA teams, and he'd probably just retire if we wouldn't let him out of his deal.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's kind of pointless to even think about trading for him now, and especially since the Grizzlies want a first round pick for him. That would be completely idiotic to trade
absolutely.
for like Bazemore and a first for Iguodala right now would be like a horrible trade for the Blazers. Like because he wouldn't make a difference in getting to the second round of the playoffs this year or not getting swept in the first round, maybe winning one game in the playoffs if we made the playoffs, but he wouldn't make like enough of a difference to put us over the top or anything. So yeah, like those kind of moves should all be off the table now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the same boat as you.
If we do trade CJ, we better get either a really good player back or such a good amount of assets that we could use them to make a trade for a Karl Anthony Towns if he becomes available or whatever star becomes available this summer.
Yeah.
So those are the routes I would take. I probably wouldn't see. It's kind of weird because I've always been in favor of trading CJ in the past.
Unless we're back right now. Okay, I think we're good again. Yeah, my internet's on a roller coaster ride, I guess. Why? I don't know why, but
just let everyone know now if it goes out again.
Yeah, if it goes out again, we're out of here, you know. But what was I gonna say? What were you saying? Oh, that's the thing. I had something good to say too.
I was talking about I don't really want to trade CJ anymore. I think I've just resigned myself to the fact that he won't be traded. So it's more just I beat myself down. But if we do trade him, we need to trade him for either someone who's just as good of a player that can fit us better in other areas, or someone or just like a trove of assets that we can use to get said player if they become available this summer.
Yeah, see, I want to see CJ under a different coach. I want to see CJ and Dame under a different coach. I want to see if CJ would possibly be a little bit more of a playmaker, and if we were in a system that moved the ball more, if CJ could fit into that. Because I don't 100% think he can't. I think it's, some of that's a product of the coaching staff, of the type of system we have, the isolation-heavy system we have. CJ contributes to that, but he engages in what the team is like. No, I don't know. That's the style of our entire team, though. So you can't really blame him for contributing to it because it's such a heavy part of our identity. So I want to see him under a different coach, and I want to see what these guys could do together under a different coach. I want to see if they could coexist in an offense that moves the ball really well, because I think they could. So I think the first move to improving this team would be to hire a new coach. Who that is, I don't know. I mean, you look at a Steve Kerr, Nick Nurse, those guys. I mean, like Steve Kerr was known obviously from his playing days, but he hadn't coached before, so people were like, worry about him. Then he ended up being terrific. Nick Nurse, not many people really knew him, and I think he's one of the best coaches in the league. So, I mean, there might be a guy out there that I don't know of that would be the right coach for this team. That's why you fire the coach, and then you have a diligent interview process with certain, you want your team to play a certain style of basketball. You look for a coach that presents that style of basketball to you in an interview and has a body of work that you can look at and and say, okay, yeah, this guy would be a good coach. I mean, like, there's this whole interview process, and you have to go into it and do your due diligence of finding the right coach, and who they might find might be somebody that I don't know. So, like, that's the thing is, I hate the argument where people say, oh, if you say you got to fire the coach, then you need to have a replacement in mind. No, you don't. That's why there's an interview process. If you're a manager at freaking Office Depot, and your employee is doing a horrible job, you don't have to know exactly who you're going to replace in order to fire them. You fire them, then you go through an interview process, and then you try and hire the right people, and you put trust in your interview process. That's exactly the same way with an NBA head coach, in my opinion. So I think that's the first move to make in terms of improving this team. I think that's what they got to do.
Yep. Fortunately, it's not happening this year, I don't think, still. I think they could lose all the rest of their games and still.
They could end, 14 and 68? Yeah. Yeah, I mean.
Honestly, at this point, I'd probably take that right now. I mean, that's.
We get the first. Hey, dropping games for top-in gains. That's the tank motto. Because that's your guy. Dropping games for topping gains. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean.
That's the best tank motto ever.
Might even have even higher aspirations if we lost every game. Because we definitely have the.
I mean, he's projected to go like top 5, top 6 right now. Like 5th, 6th. Like, he's risen up that far. And honestly, everybody above him is like a center or a point guard. Like, the only guy that could possibly fit would be, like, LaMelo Ball. But, I mean, I'm just so uneasy about that. And I don't know if he could be an NBA small forward. He is, like, 6'7", but that kid's super skinny. I don't know. And how would he fit? That'd be interesting. Jason Lee, $2 donation shout out. He says, ignorance is bliss, change is uncomfortable, 100%. And people like Stotts as a person, so they like him as a coach. That's how it goes.
Yeah, that's why I always say to people are like, well, look how respected Stotts is around the league. Like, yeah, because he is a great guy. Like, he's well respected because he's been around the NBA for a long time. He's been around a lot of coaches that. He's been on the same staff with a lot of these coaches. Like, of course, coaches respect him. Like, he's not like a jerk to anyone. He's like, a couple weeks ago was the first time he'd ever been thrown out of a game. So it's not like he is like disgraceful to the refs or anything like that.
Yeah, I think it's part that, and it's part, I think other NBA coaches kind of underestimate the talent we have on the roster. So when you combine those two things together, when we have like a 49, 53 win season that surprises, coaches around the league or whatever, I think they say, oh, well, Stotts is doing a great job. And then he gets that respect. So, yeah, I don't. Yeah. And I bet you know what? Also, let me just add on this real quick.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't come out if Stotts didn't, if other coaches didn't think Stotts was doing a good job. You know what I mean? That's not something that they're going to say publicly. That's not something that's going to come out. So you'd never hear other NBA coaches think Terry Stotts is doing a bad job, especially considering how good of a guy he is. Like, that's not going to come out. If there's any narrative from other NBA coaches about Stotts, it's going to be that he's a good coach.
Yep. Well, Andre Bobrick says it's not like firing Stotts right now will make us worse. Things can only get better. We've lost 5 in a row.
True.
Well, the problem is he just signed an extension, so we still owe him. I think it's about $20 million. So if you eat that contract and are in the luxury tax, that's a huge amount of payments, and then you have to pay a new coach, whatever that salary is. I mean, we're talking a lot of money for a team that's 14-21 right now, and that's why I think he'll at least last this season. And then the narrative in the offseason will be that he made the Western Conference Finals with a more healthy roster, and that injuries.
Yeah.
So he'll get a pass for this season, which, I mean, in a completely fair world, that's probably. Yeah, I mean, personally, I know you and I wouldn't have given him an extension. We probably would have fired him after the Pelican series and hired Bud Budenholzer. But we can't go back on that now. And he was rewarded for getting to the Western Conference Finals last year. And so I think we're stuck for at least the rest of this season and partial season. Like if we had the same record next year, then he'd probably be fired after a game like tonight.
Yeah.
But this year, I think he's safe because that also will look bad on Olshey for giving him an extension this summer if just a few months later he's now saying, I think we need to get rid of him, or do you mind just paying him off so he goes away? Like, because that doesn't look good on his ability to hire a coach either.
Yeah. Yeah. I just wanted to add something small onto like the narrative about, oh, you made the Western Conference Finals. What's funny is the people that will use that narrative won't use the result of us getting swept in the first round by the Pelicans. You know what I mean? They'll put all the stock into us making the Western Conference Finals, but the playoffs before that, they'll put no stock in. It's not consistent. You know, it's funny how that works.
But we didn't have a good roster that year.
Yeah, and then the same roster. You know what I mean? Like,
no, that's what I hear. I guess
and that's the thing is, I was saying our roster is being under. Like people were blaming Al-Farouq freaking Aminu for that series because he wasn't a good enough shooter, so we got swept. He shot 43% from the three-point line and made over 3 threes a game in that Pelican series. But people were blaming him and his lack of shooting? Are you kidding me? Like, it was so stupid.
I swear, Tori, the other day I had someone tell me that Stotts overachieved by making to the playoffs and getting swept by the Pelicans with home court advantage. That was his argument.
No,
I was just like, what? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But he like kept doubling down on it. Like,
I thought that roster and last year's roster were good enough to make the Western Conference Finals in spite of Stotts if everything broke right. And last year, everything broke right, and we made the Western Conference Finals in spite of Stotts. It doesn't mean Stotts is a good coach, so I hate when people use that narrative. You know, Dwayne Casey won Coach of the Year, and then he got fired, and it was a massive upgrade. People were like, oh, well, they had Kawhi Leonard. Well, look what Nick Nurse is doing this year. With injuries, this team is still just like a more complete team, like just a more well-coached team than Dwayne Casey ever had them playing. You know what I mean? Like, Dwayne Casey never coached the team as well as Nick Nurse has been coaching the Raptors this year. You look at what Dwayne Casey is doing. He has some okay talent in Detroit. They're doing horrible. They fired Dwayne Casey after him being Coach of the Year. And, you know, if that happened to Stotts, people would crucify Olshey or whoever fired him. Like, how are you going to fire the Coach of the Year? You want Coach of the Year and made it to the Western Conference, you know. Had a good record, had a good season, and so how are you going to fire him? That's ridiculous, you know what I mean? But, like, look at Toronto. I wanted to fire Stotts after that Pelican series and go after Mike Budenholzer. Look what Budenholzer is doing. His team is 30-5. His team is 30-5. We should have went after Mike Budenholzer, man.
And then, you know, the Bucks were kind of a fringe playoff team. They get Budenholzer, and all of a sudden they're the best team in the East.
Yeah.
I know some of that's Giannis's development too, but like, I mean, Budenholzer's a part of that and setting up the offense to maximize him. And then you got Mark Jackson getting fired and Steve Kerr taking over a team that got lost in the first round, and then he leads them to 3 out of the next 5 championships. I mean, you can argue, I guess, whether those teams would have taken that next step if they kept the same coach. But then you look at this season, what a guy like Nick Nurse is doing with seemingly just as bad of injuries as us, not for the full season like we have, but like there are plenty of nights where he has a bunch of guys who are way less talented than a Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum, and he has found a way to have them still competing in the East.
Yeah, I mean, they blew out Boston playing like Patrick McCaw. God, I forget. Let me go
Terrence
find that.
Davis.
Let me go find that box score, because that was a better win than we've had all season. We have 3 wins against winning teams because OKC's a winning team now, barely. I don't even really count them as a winning team. We have 1 good win this year. It was on the road against Dallas in our 3rd game of the season. That's our only other game we've had against a winning team. That's the only other win we've had against a winning team other than OKC. But let me go to Toronto because they beat Boston. I think on the road. I think it was on the road too. Let me.
Might have been at home. Was that the Christmas game?
I don't remember. Let me find it. I just want to read off the box score. Honestly. My stream starts lagging. That sucks, but here we go. Got it on my phone. So let's see. Yeah, they beat the Boston Celtics 113-97 in Boston. Boston was healthy, and the Raptors started Fred VanVleet, Kyle Lowry, Patrick McCaw, OG Anunoby, and Serge Ibaka. They got 22 minutes out of Terrence Davis, 19 minutes out of Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, 15 minutes out of O'Shea Brissett, 16 minutes out of Chris Boucher, a couple minutes out of Malcolm Miller and Stanley Johnson. So they were missing Marc Gasol, they were missing Pascal Siakam, they were missing Norman Powell. That's worse injuries than us. They're missing their best player. That's a worse bout of injuries than us. But Patrick McCaw that game, 18 points, 8 assists, 7 rebounds. I guarantee you, if we were having to play him, he wouldn't be doing that. He would not be doing that for us, anything close to that. And people would say, oh, well, we have to play Patrick McCaw. He's just not a good player. Same thing with, O'Shea Brissett, 4 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, and 15 minutes, 2 for 5 shooting. Not horrible. You know what I mean? But that's the thing is like Nurse like Patrick McCaw almost had a triple double, 18, 8, and 7. He would not be doing that for us, and people would be saying, well, he just sucks. He's never done anything. But Nick Nurse, next man up, gets the best possible production out of his guys. We don't get the best possible production out of our guys.
And I hate the talent thing. Like, look, just 2 days ago, Washington goes into Miami and beats the Heat in Miami, and some guy named Garrison Matthews, a 23-year-old rookie from Lipscomb, has like 28 points.
Yeah, Washington has multiple guys like that. Gary Payton,
I know,
the second is doing well right now. That's Scott Brooks, who isn't even considered a good coach in my eyes. Yeah.
And then the team they beat, they have a bunch of guys that you always mention, like the Kendrick Nunn and Duncan Robinson type guys, where like other teams are developing these kind of guys or finding these kind of guys.
Yep.
I feel like it's kind of like what Jake Layman did last year, but like as soon as he started struggling, oh nope, you're not going to get to develop. You're back to the bench, dude.
Yep. And Stotts didn't like him, so they got rid of him. Yeah.
I'm not going to give you a legit chance in the playoffs to even make a difference. And if you do play, I'm going to make you try to guard Jamal Murray so everyone thinks you suck at defense. And not give you a fair shot.
3-4 guy guarding a point guard. Yeah. Yeah.
So it drives me crazy how all these people are like, oh, well, Stotts gets the most out of the talent he's given. Like, okay, but is that Stotts or is that like because they're playing with a superstar named Damian Lillard, and he's just like willing these guys to be better, even though they're not really being coached up as well as they could be.
People love Brandon Roy for putting up like 22, 5, and 4, right? On like okay efficiency. Isn't that what CJ McCollum is pretty close to? People wouldn't compare CJ McCollum to Brandon Roy. Brandon Roy obviously played in a slower era. Like, Brandon Roy is a better player. But, in terms of statistical production, they're not that far off from each other. And then you got Damian Lillard. You got a guy getting over 27 points per game and over 7.5 assists. Like, possibly the most talented trailblazer ever on your team. Terry Stotts would not be here if they didn't draft Damian Lillard. Like, he's not. He's been carried by Dame. I've said it before. I'll say it again. He's been carried by Dame. He should, dude. He should like. He owes. I feel like he owes Dame so much because he's gotten so much money by simply having Dame on his team, where he can just kind of roll the ball out there. Okay, go isolate, go create. Go give us 30 points and 10 assists and carry this team on your back. And Dame's like, okay, game 5, I'll drop 50 on the Thunder and will this team to a win after we're down 15. Because we had stretches where we played an awful brand of basketball. I'll just will this team to this win, and hit a 37-footer at the damn buzzer.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I'm tired of the Stotts experience. I'm tired of experiencing the Stotts experience. Jody, hire somebody else other than Terry Stotts.
I wish they would force him to hire like a big time defensive coach as an assistant. Because if Stotts can't take the fall this year, I would rather them. Like, people are mentioning David Fizdale in the chat. Like, he was like forever an assistant coach on Miami, and he was really well liked by all those guys.
Tom Thibodeau could be a good one because we need somebody that holds guys accountable, and Tom Thibodeau's a great defensive coach, and he wouldn't have a head coach. Like, he's a horrible head coach in my opinion, but he's a great defensive coach.
Yeah, and he was the assistant coach for Boston during their title years and stuff. Or one, I guess that team only won one title with the big three, but what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And then, but yeah, I don't know if those guys are willing to, like, even a guy like Dwayne Casey, who's the coach of Detroit, probably not for too much longer, but he was the assistant coach with Stotts on that Dallas championship team. So it kind of drives me crazy that Stotts won a championship as like a pretty high assistant coaching the offense, and then he had basically like a defensive coordinator in Casey, and then you have your head coach in Carlisle. But like, it seems like so far in his tenure in Portland, he just wants guys who don't really mess with him or don't try to challenge him as a coach. And I think that might be why you have guys like Jay Triano leave after a good season. You have a guy like Vanderpool leave this offseason because they want to go to a situation where they can try to prove themselves and show that they're a more capable coach than they're being able to show.
Yeah, I definitely don't doubt that because Stotts is kind of stubborn. Stotts seems like the type, great guy, but doesn't want to be told anything other than what he wants to hear in a way. And so, I mean, yeah, I agree with that. You have these assistant coaches leaving. I mean, like, was Minnesota really offering that much more? You know what I mean? Like, Vanderpool has a great relationship with Dame. Like, you can tell he loved coaching Dame. I feel like there had to be something more than like as to the reasoning why he went to Minnesota and left Portland, and that could be a really good explanation why.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that's not the case, but yeah, you start to wonder. Yeah, I mean, like even a guy like Popovich, he tries all kinds of stuff with his assistant coaches. Former players. He's got the first ever woman assistant coach. Like he's not afraid to try different things, and I mean, he's hired several. Like foreign coaches, Messina was under there.
Yeah, Messina's a guy I'd like as a Stotts replacement.
I forget isn't the Charlotte coach currently
Borrego,
a Spur disciple?
Borrego, yeah.
And then the coach that was he got fired after 1 year from the Suns.
Kokoskov.
Yeah.
Kokoskov, yeah. Yeah, I mean, like he Popovich, that's the thing. It's like if the team's struggling, if like the Spurs, I hate the argument. Oh, the Spurs are struggling too. Are you blaming Pop? I don't watch them game in, game out. I'm based on what, it's not just like, oh, this is their record, they suck. It's like what I see game in, game out. San Antonio, I think, has played a harder schedule than we have, and they have a better record than us. And I don't think I don't think they have more talent than us, and I know that Greg Popovich is willing to hold himself accountable, look himself in the mirror, change his ways, adapt his ways if he needs to, and he tries whatever he does to be the most effective coach possible. I can't say anything remotely close to the same thing about Terry Stotts.
Yep.
So, I
mean, you're talking about guys like people are saying that about Steve Kerr. Oh, did Kerr finally did he forget how to coach this season? Like, no, he's missing his like entire starting lineup most games.
Yeah.
And to that team, like, I mean, they came into the Rose Garden and gave us a game with like nowhere near the talent that we had in that game.
Yeah.
And they like took us to the wire. They all played hard. They were still like doing the right things, and that was if you ever watch Golden State play, it's the perfect example of a team that does the right things but just doesn't have the skilled players to do it on most nights to win games.
Yep.
And that's the difference between Portland and a team like Golden State right now. They're tanking because their team they're trying hard and they play with energy and they're trying to win, but they're just not good enough. Whereas we're just continuing to do the same things that aren't working and not even like seemingly trying as hard as we can.
Yeah. That's a great point. That's the thing is like that's why you got to watch San Antonio. That's why you got to watch Golden State and be objective in terms of analyzing how those teams are playing, and then do the same with us. But they're not. They just search for certain narratives to try to justify their belief in Stotts, to justify their support of Stotts, and it can be as much of a stretch as, oh, ball movement is completely irrelevant type of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, the arguments have gotten more and more ridiculous. I think Blazer fans are starting to realize how ridiculous the arguments are. They see a game like tonight and it's excused away with just absolute ridiculousness, and it's like, come over here. We got the YouTube channel that you need. We got the analysis, the true objective analysis that you need. Now we're, looking more professional with the branding, so it looks a little nicer. So we're getting there in terms of like the quality of production. A couple years from now, look out. That's all I gotta say. Yeah. So Eric is feisty today. Yeah, we lost to the Knicks by 24. I don't blame him.
Well, it's just
you've had some great points this podcast or this post game show. This is your best stream yet, I think, because you've been spitting facts.
I didn't have a chance to come on the podcast earlier, but it's like you talked about like all this stuff about the CJ rumor today and all that stuff, and then people are like, "I want to hear what you say about the CJ rumor." Like,
that podcast was so hard to do. I was like half asleep. I'm still tired, but I'm not half asleep. And it's easier having somebody else. It's hard. Like, it takes a lot of mental focus to do a podcast like that smoothly by yourself. I enjoyed that podcast somewhat, but also that podcast was
I know, man. I felt so bad here. I could see you struggling through person.
Man,
I was like,
I stayed up all night for these. If you guys haven't seen that podcast, I got some cool like graphical stuff. I've been working on an intro, working on like a podcast intro and a channel intro and like an outro, and that looks really good. So I'm going to roll that out hopefully in the next week, if not the next week or two. I still want to get a website up at some point, but I haven't followed up on that. And then the Mellow merch, I don't even know if I'm allowed to sell it, but I'm going to try because I kind of owe it to Jake because he helped me so much with the design. If I get a cease and desist letter, I get a cease and desist letter. But yeah, so anyway, I'm going to wrap up this podcast. It's kind of crazy that we've been streaming for almost 2 hours and it's only 8:46, so I actually could go to the gym right now.
Nice.
I think I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to go get shots up. So, yeah, thank you guys for tuning in to this post-game show. Perspective has to change at this point. We just lost to the Knicks by 24. We've lost 5 in a row, 14-21. 14-21. That's bad. That's really, really bad. So after, I won't have as much, I won't be cramming as much. I might try and use some of the stuff I've learned graphically to try and get out like a cool looking mock draft, since we're going to start looking at the draft along with trades, along with that type of stuff, since that is more entertaining than talking about how bad Terry Stotts. Talking about how bad Terry Stotts sucks is always entertaining, but it's the same thing every single game. So I want to try to get you guys some more diversity in terms of the content to keep you guys engaged and interested in what's going on here at Blazers Uprise. So I don't know.
I might take some time this evening, since it's still early, to make another trade talk video.
Okay. Yeah. Just text me if you need help with that, bro. Okay. And as far as what I got planned, I'm not entirely sure, but gonna try and mix up the videos and podcasts, make a little bit more videos for you guys. So yeah, that's that. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, Lance, Russell, Bruce Davis, Brian Scalabrini, and Productions, Casey Brewer, all you guys, the People's Mix, all you guys that are in here almost every post-game stream. Trevin for sure. Zacho. I know I'm missing people, but just name people off the top of my head. If I missed you, I apologize.
You got to mention Jason Lee and first.
Jason Lee, last P, or first P, last LJ, whatever. he knows who he is for the donations. Solar Money Yeet, which is the best name that we got in this comment section. Actually, it's between him and Russell, first round exit Westbrook. I like Solar Money Yeet. And Joseph. So anyway, figured I'd give you guys some love, give you guys some
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year 2020. Yay. It's going to be even worse than the end of 2019, but maybe that means it ends, 2019 started good for the Blazers, ended bad. Maybe 2020 is going to end horribly or going to start horribly and end great. Maybe it'll be the opposite. I don't know. But yeah, we'll shout out Gassy Jalapeno too. Hey, did anybody respond to that Perk tweet? Nope, they were super silent. Super silent. They didn't have anything to say. What are you going to do? Tell the NBA player he knows nothing when you haven't even played high school basketball, if you're like a Chad Doing or something? I mean, maybe Chad Doing played high school basketball. I don't think he did, though. But, yeah, what are you going to say if you're one of those guys? Got nothing to say. You're going to make yourself look foolish if you respond to that. So they were smart, and they didn't. But, yeah, fun performance from Carmelo tonight. Might have to watch the full highlights on his game. Because he was balling out in New York. I had a feeling he was going to have a big performance in Madison Square Garden. It just sucks that we lost by 24 and wasted Melo's, 26, 28 points, however many he had. That's sad, man. So, anyway, that's a wrap for this podcast. Thank you guys for watching. We'll catch you guys later. I might post something in the community tab, giving you guys a little update here in the next day or so. So, stay tuned for that. So this is it for me and Eric Brandt. I'll see you guys later as always. Peace out. Go Blazers.